Okay, so you've purchased your Tru Tracker LC70 Track Equalization Kit, and now you're ready to fit it. This short video presentation is to guide you in that task and ensure you do it safely and effectively. A good working knowledge of mechanical fitting is required. Best to take the kit and vehicle to a mechanical workshop, or even better, to a Tru Tracker outlet if you don't feel confident. It is also a good idea to give the underside of your vehicle a thorough clean before you start. Multidrive has provided some tools in the kit, but you will also need to supply some yourself. For a full list of what is required, please refer to the Tools and Equipment section of the MDT Tru Tracker Installation documents provided. Make sure you check that you have all the equipment on hand prior to starting. The procedure is best undertaken on a 4-post hoist with a movable jack to raise the axles, but a suitable 2-post hoist will do. Never rely on stacked items to support the vehicle. Before you start any work where you place any part of your body under the vehicle, make sure you have a secondary safety mechanism in place. Start at the driver's side, as this is closer to the flexible brake hose. Remove the wheels and apply the brake line hose clamp to the rubber hose which runs from the chassis to the axle housing. It should be firmly clamped and locked with the sliding containment ring. Using a 10mm brake line spanner or open ender, remove the brake line from the brake caliper. Using a 17mm ring spanner or socket and breaker bar, now remove the brake caliper. There are two 17mm hex head bolts holding it to the brake backing plate. Carefully place the caliper in a clear area, well out of the way, ensuring the brake port is covered or plugged to provide protection from grinding dust or other contaminants. The disc rotor can now be removed. It may need a tap around the diameter of the drum section to loosen it. If it cannot be removed easily because the handbrake is ridged and the drum grooved, then the handbrake shoes will need to be backed off. This is achieved by removing the rubber plug on the face of the rotor and backing off the shoe adjustment screw with a special tool or a large flat-bladed screwdriver until the drum is easy to remove. It will be best to refer to the printed Toyota manual sheets supplied for this procedure. The 614mm hex axle retaining nuts must now be removed. The tapered collets will remain in place. Using the large tapered punch provided, place it in the axle center and give it a hefty, sharp blow with a heavy hammer. This generally springs the axle and loosens the collets. If this doesn't do the trick, then insert the two M8 bolts in the threaded holes in the axle flange and place them under some tension using the 13mm socket or a spanner. Don't over-tighten, as they can shear and cause a secondary problem. With these in place, use the punch again. This technique generally works in all but the most stubborn cases. The next job is to remove the axle hub and bearing assembly. The two Phillips head locking screws in the hub nut must be removed first. An impact screwdriver is best for this job. Make sure you use a large bit, as a small bit will damage the head of the screws. If using a large Phillips head screwdriver, make sure you apply plenty of inward pressure as you turn. Remove the large round hub nut and washer. There are 3 lugs on the hub nut to aid this removal. The hub should now slide off the stub. It may need some gentle coercion using the soft hammer. Next, remove the ABS sensor retaining bolt using a 10mm spanner. The sensor can be held by dried paint, but take care and work it loose. Do not apply excess force, as it is made of plastic and is vital to the vehicle operation. It is also quite expensive to buy as a spare part. Place the ABS sensor out of the way and keep the bolt handy, as it will be required in the cutting operation. Disconnect the handbrake cable by removing the spring clip, pin and anti-vibration plate where it attaches to the lever on the brake backing plate. The backing plate is then removed by undoing the 4 17mm hex head retaining nuts on the inboard side of the plate. All of these parts should be kept together and covered in an area well clear of the job. So much easier later if you spend a little time organizing things now. Remove the small axle tube seal from inside the end of the stub. This will not be reused, as 2 new seals are supplied in the kit. In the kit, there is a nylon plug with a felt seal. There is also a fitting tool, which is a long bolt with a large washer and a tab to screw it into the nylon plug. Screw in the fitting tool and gently work the plug all the way into the tube until it reaches the washer. Carefully unscrew the fitting tool and remove it. This is the correct depth for the plug to be inside the cut area. There is a thin flat plate supplied in the kit, which is a template for opening up the ABS sensor hole. Place it over the stub in the right configuration and secure it with the ABS sensor bolt. Mark down each side of the stub to the hole. The hole will become a slot after cutting to allow fitment of the ABS sensor into the new stub. Remove the guide plate after marking. In the kit, there are 2 guide rings with small cap screws inserted radially. Place the ring onto the Toyota stub and move it inwards until it can't go any further. Tighten the small screws to secure it. The 5-inch grinder with a handle is now required to cut the stub end outside the guide ring. Make sure you have your safety glasses on, and preferably a full face mask when doing this job. A 2mm cut-off disc is best for the job, and it is vital to buy good quality discs. Never use a damaged or suspect disc. New discs will also be essential to get the required depth of cut. Take your time and work your way through and around the cut. If the blade grabs or is damaged, stop. Remove the power supply and change to a new disc. Firm pressure on the tool is required. Excess pressure is dangerous. The key is to let the disc do the cutting. The stub at this point is around 8mm thick, so it will take a reasonable time to cut through. You may also need to reverse the disc guard and handle to cut from both sides. This is an important part of the procedure, so proceed with patience and care. Now, cut the ABS slot along the outside of the marked lines. Once again, you may need to reverse the guard and handle to cut both sides. The cut areas need to be cleaned up and deburred. Never use a cutting disc as a grinding disc. It weakens the disc and can be dangerous. A flat wheel or fine grinding disc can be used, or it can be done manually using some elbow grease and a file. The inside of the stub should be deburred with the rotary deburring tool provided in the kit. Take a little time and make sure it is done right. Check that the ABS sensor fits smoothly through the slot you've made for it. You may need to give it a bit more clearance if it won't fit. Loosen the cutting guide ring and remove it. It will not be reused, as there are 2 supplied. Cleaning up the stub surfaces is vital. Remove any rust or bruises using the file and the emery cloth provided. Also check the Toyota flange face for any bruising or burrs. Careful inspection of all mating surfaces is required for the correct fit. Now remove the nylon axle tube plug, which is now clearly visible, using the threaded bolt fitting tool. A quick wipe around the inner diameter is a good idea. Now choose the correct MDT stub. There is a left and right hand of each, and give it a thorough inspection. When satisfied, use the alcohol wipes provided to clean the mating flange face and the internal mating surface. Using the wipes to similarly clean the stub outside and flange mating surfaces. The new MDT stub is now ready to fit to the original cut-down Toyota stub. The new stub should be trial-fitted first. It should be able to neatly slide over the old stub and all the holes, and the ABS slot lineup. This requires some finesse, rotating and sliding simultaneously. It should not be forced, and no lubricant should be used. Never apply any force to the threaded end of the new MDT stub. When satisfied with the fit, the unit is ready for the sealant and high-strength retaining compound. First, apply a consistent bead of the Loctite flange sealant around the flange surface, including around the holes. Smooth the bead out, ensuring an even coverage. Ensuring that the inner bores of the MDT stub and the outer diameters of the Toyota stub have been thoroughly cleaned and prepped with alcohol wipes. Apply a thin consistent film of the retaining compound to the 3 inner bores of the MDT stub. Once again, smooth out and ensure a consistent layer. Install the MDT stub with the same care as in the trial fitting, and making sure you align the bolt holes and ABS slot. Once again, never use any force on the stub end. It is quite thin at the end and is easily damaged. The unit should slide on neatly till the flanges are nearly mated. Check the holes are correctly aligned using one of the bolts supplied. A gentle tap with a soft hammer on the MDT flange may be necessary to bring the two flanges into perfect alignment. The high tensile shoulder bolts can now be prepared for fitting. There are 2 long and 2 short bolts on each unit. A full coat of thread locker should be evenly applied to the threads. Ensure the short bolts are fitted into the holes that are counterbored into the back of the Toyota flange, and the long ones into the full width holes. When fitted, the threaded ends should all protrude equally. The bolts should be pulled up with a ring spanner until firm, and then tightened with a torque wrench. It is essential that this is done correctly. It is a 3-stage process. First, set the torque wrench at around 85 Newton meters, or 65 foot-pounds on the old scale. Work around the bolts and ensure an even tension. Reset the torque wrench to 105 Newton meters, 75 foot-pounds, and tension the bolts again. Repeat the process at 105 Newton meters to ensure consistent correct torque. Using a clean rag, clean the mating surfaces of the flanges to remove any excess sealant. Now, fit the new tube seal provided. It is a very thin seal, so this must be done with care. The seal must be inserted so that the spring around the seal diameter is closest to the differential. Carefully push the seal evenly into the end of the tube. A flat plate can be used to tap it evenly. Ensure it is evenly seated in the tube, and then apply a liberal coating of grease to the inner part of the seal. Refit the backing plate and tighten the nuts firmly with a 17mm ring spanner. A firm tap with the nylon hammer on the end of the spanner will ensure they are tight, as a socket and torque wrench cannot be used. Gently work the hub back into its fully fitted position and fit the hub washer, and then screw on the large hub nut. The hub nut should be tightened firmly to the point where resistance to turning the hub is evident, and the nut then backed off one position for location of the locking screws. Apply some Loctite stud locker to the screws and firmly tighten them. Refit the rotor and then the caliper. Tighten the 2 17mm bolts firmly. The MDT extended axle can now be prepared for installation. Clean the inner axle mating surface using the wipes provided. Apply a bead of Loctite 515 gasket sealant and smooth out around the face. Insert the new axle carefully, locating the splines and making sure the 2 dowel holes are lined up with the dowels in the hub. Gently tap the axle home with the soft hammer and insert the tapered collets on the studs. Firmly tighten all the nuts with a 14mm spanner or socket. Install the new extended brake line to the T-nut and caliper. Do not use Loctite on these brake line nuts. Tighten firmly. Do not over-tighten. Refit the ABS sensor using the new bracket supplied in the kit and fit the 10mm hex bolt to lock the sensor in position. This can be a little fiddly, so be patient. Fit the handbrake extension plates using the 10mm hex bolt, spacer and lock nut provided as shown. The bolt is fitted to the cable end and the original fittings to the backing plate lever end. It is a good idea at this stage to run over your work and check all bolts and fittings. A little extra effort at this stage can save a lot of effort later. Repeat the above process on the passenger side of the vehicle. Once again, perform your check on all bolts and fittings. Remove the brake line flexible hose clamp and bleed the brakes as per the standard Toyota procedure as included in the kit. Remember to use the specified grade of brake fluid and check the master cylinder fluid level throughout the process and again at the end. Do not overfill the level. A piece of clear plastic tube has been included for the bleed process. Find an old plastic bottle as a receiver and when finished, dispose of the old brake fluid responsibly. Remember, it is quite corrosive and poisonous and should be handled as such. Double check everything again, especially the brake fittings, for any weeping around the joints. The handbrake may need to be readjusted, and this is done according to the Toyota procedure as included in the kit documentation. Replace the wheels and tighten appropriately. Jack up the vehicle and safely remove the jack stands and safety system. Lower carefully, and you're ready to go with your Tru Tracker Axle Track Extension Kit. Safe and happy four-wheeling.